know what it is that you want and need out of this session, and happy to take your questions throughout and of course at the end. So give me just a second and I will share my screen. Hopefully, let me get set up. Hopefully you all can see this, and let's get rolling. So my name is Kristen Durham. I'm the VP of Startups at Zendesk, and I'm here to talk with you all today about defining your startup's customer experience from day one. There are a million things that as founders you are asked to do and that you have to do when building your company early on. Structuring your customer experience is one of, if not of equal importance to things like building product, refining your pitch. And so happy to share a little bit with you all today about what we've learned in our, let's say 10 plus years as a startup and now public company. I've been at Zendesk for 4.5 years. The last year of that as the leader of our startups initiative. Prior to that, however, I served as chief of staff to the CEO. And just before I think you all joined, Barack and I were reminiscing. Prior to Zendesk, I had been working at Silicon Valley Bank, leading some of the international practice in countries across Latin America, as well as in places like Turkey and Russia. So maybe we've crossed paths there before, but suffices to say, my passion is with startups. It's with how we reach our customers. And so that's what I'm excited to share with you today. Let's see if we can get going. So before we get into the why of defining your customer experience, a little bit more on the why. I'm the one here today. So at Zendesk, we make software to help companies manage their customer relationships. And our background is in customer service and support. From that starting point, we've been expanding into sales and into CRM. Like I said, we were a startup ourselves not so long ago, and we provide tools to some of the hottest names in startup ecosystem. Zoom, obviously you all know that's where we are today, but in other companies like Pindo, Slack, they started and grew and scaled with us, and we want to help you do the same. So that's a little bit about why me and why Zendesk. So today we're going to talk about why customer experience should matter, how to get started when you have a million other things to do. And then finally, I'll leave you with a few resources that we provide with the Zendesk for Startups program. So first, why does customer experience matter to startups? And more importantly, why should you start now if you haven't already? So as I was preparing for today, I think of there are tens, if not hundreds of reasons why it's really critical to prioritize your customer early on. A few of those that I think that are most important motivations or really points of leverage for your startup that come from focusing on CX early on. These things start with customer retention. If your company operates off of a subscription model, keeping your customers is pretty much essential. You don't want to keep filling the bucket only to have the bottom leaking revenue, especially when acquisition is costly and you have to give up equity to afford it. I think that's probably the most intuitive part. The second piece, though, is that it establishes brand trust in the market. New company without a reputation, the way that you interact with your customers is really going to define their experience with you and be the thing that helps them build trust in you over time. That can be both, giving them that positive feeling of who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, but also it helps you get ahead of negative reviews by really preventing them in the first place. And no better publicity really than when your customers are happy and trusting you, talking about you in the market. So now we'll get a little further afield. Investing in customer experience early can really help shape your product roadmap through feedback. You can rely on your customers to give you information, especially those that are most excited and most passionate about your products. They will not hesitate to let you know exactly what they think about it. Of course, this comes with this needs to be balanced by your own product objectives, and what you see as the future of your company and the future of your product. So don't by any means hand over your roadmap to your users. But this input from people who really want to see you succeed and create something that they'll use and ideally pay for is gold. So mind that, shape that, and think about how your customer service, your customer experience can really help you harvest that early on. What else? Investing in customer experience can help identify cross-sell opportunities. Your sales and marketing motions will bring customers in, but it's really how you support those customers, the agents, the members of your team that you have, there when your customers need help. They're the ones that are more likely to regularly hear from the people that are using your product, especially in a B2C case. And so those on your team who are serving your customers, they are your frontline. And in many cases, when somebody comes in with a question or a problem, they can be the folks that really help to, provide the solution, cross-sell a new product, bring forward new features. One of the companies we work with here in the US, it's a grocery delivery company. You subscribe to a box and maybe you don't always know what you're going to get every week. And with that, a lot of people will call to cancel. They'll say, I've had enough kale for my life. I can't take it anymore. Like, cancel my subscription. And while their customer agents are trained to help somebody cancel if they really do need to, really that call is more a start of a conversation. Okay, I understand. You're getting too much kale. What would you rather eat? Did you know that did you know that you can substitute or stop getting this certain product? Did you know that we recently launched a wine offering alongside of our veggie offering? So companies actually do find ways to have their support agents be that additional selling team. Especially, like I said, in a B2C use case where you don't have a formal sales team. And finally, on my top 5, number 5 is that investing in the experience you bring to your customers and the way you support them. That actually is also an investment in your company culture, and it's something that can help you. It can help you really recruit both folks to your team as well as customers to your platform going forward. The way that you treat your customers, the way that you approach your customers, it says a lot about the kind of company that you're wanting to build, and that's something that I think can be leveraged when you're out in the market more broadly, whether you're recruiting more customers or recruiting folks for the team. So this is my top 5. Hopefully, at least 1 or 2 of these already was resonant with you, and maybe a few more come in. But as you think about the demo day that's coming and a variety of other things, like really, really key in on the fact that your investments in CX, to whatever level you've made them today, are not just, they're not just cost center investments. They're really adding to the core of your business offering. So, and I'll also say, if you haven't really built out a plan for your customer service or your customer experience, don't worry. More than 70% of startups don't have a formal CX strategy in place. This was some research we did early in the year. So, don't worry about it. There's still time. We know you've been busy. But be heartened that actually you can quickly make up ground if it's not something that you've been prioritizing. There's a lot you can do right away, and that's what I really want to dive into with you right now. So the how. How do you get started with CX from day one? So like I said earlier this summer, we undertook some research. It was our first ever exclusive customer experience benchmark just for startups. We looked at 4,400 startups that have used Zendesk over their history. We created a couple of cohorts, one of the fastest growing startups, and we looked at all the rest and tried to say, okay, what were the behaviors of those companies that really grew quickly and did very well versus their peers or their competitors. So that research is what I want to bring to you today, alongside of some of my own experiences and things that my team and I have seen here at Zendesk. So, whether it's day 100, hopefully not 1,000 that you've been waiting to get started on your customer experience, we'll bring a few things that will be helpful for you to get started in smart, effective ways without sacrificing the time that you need to put towards many other critical pieces of your business. All right, so target number one: add a support platform within 9 to 10 months after raising funding, or definitely within 2 years after being founded. If I want to be more aggressive, I'll tell you, put it in place from day one. This is where you're going to start building your customer record in many ways. But if you haven't started yet, don't be heartened. The other way of thinking about this rule is to get out of your inbox. One of the things that will slow you down, maybe it's slowing you down already, is being that central kind of point of contact, also potentially the central point of failure in the way that you're going to serve your customers. As your users continue to ramp, your ability to manage it in your inbox, alongside of emails from investors, alongside of updates with your internal team, with other external communication. You don't want your customers getting lost in that mess of the inbox. And when it comes time to bring somebody in to help you, like that is the worst place to do it. And so if you do anything early on, get out of that inbox, get out of your inbox, and get into some sort of tool that will allow you to collaborate, that will allow you to start bringing your customer data as they reach out to you into one place, and will allow you to organize it, respond to it quickly, start documenting your responses to those customers, doing all of the things that are really going to be critical to helping you scale. Early on, maybe you can be the entire support team for as long as you know all of your customers by name. But at the point in time it gets beyond that, you really have to think about leaning on someone else. So if time is not the right way to be thinking about that, or if the pain of living with this in your inbox is not enough, just know that the other good rule of thumb is, when you've lost track of just how many customers you have and don't know them by name, that's another way to think that you're here and you're ready to move out of the inbox and onto a platform. One of the other things, and I'm gonna move over really quickly, guys, and pop open the Q&A. Sorry, I can't quite see the questions that you're asking, but maybe someone on my team, if we should hop in and answer any of those, I'll let them let me know to stop and interrupt.
So one question is, do you
please
advise about the B2B startups from Alp? He asked about I think B2B startups and also customer experience. I think he mentions that.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I don't know why. For some reason, I can't see the question. But I'll talk a little bit, sure, about B2B startups, and you help me focus in. So with B2B, which is the life that we live here at Zendesk every day ourselves, I think that the way that you approach Customer support, it needs to be a little bit different. There are a few things that are fairly common to see that are dissimilarities between when you're serving consumers and when you're serving businesses. And I think what we found is oftentimes on a business to business side, the issues are more complex. Many of our consumer issues are, how can I reset my password? Where do I go to check my account statement? How do I sign up? Oftentimes, consumer issues can get complicated, but more commonly on the business to business side, there are going to be a wider variety of things that you need to control for, especially if the businesses that you're selling to are enterprises. And so in that world, I think there's you kind of have you have expectations raising twofold, right? We're all consumers at the end of the day, and we're all increasingly impatient. We want things to be as convenient as possible, and we want them to be where we want them to be. So we all bring those consumer biases to how we do business now today, much more so than say 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago. And so, on the business to business side, you're dealing with folks who are consumers, and they have these consumer expectations. But on top of that, they also have the expectation of being a business customer, which means that generally they want support, they want it faster, especially if they're paying for your product. Even if you don't have a service level agreement in place, like in the back of their mind, they have expectations for when and how they're going to hear from you. So like there's no truism about how these things are different. But what I'd say that our experience has been is that, on the B2B side, what you'll find is more complexity. What you'll find is, you'll have different user types sometimes, which have different needs and different concerns. So you may cross that threshold of huge customer numbers much more slowly than if you're in a consumer business. And so sometimes that leads folks to try to stay in an inbox longer. I think what we see a lot now is many companies, when they're just getting started, especially if they're, if they don't have a ton of customers, they'll even try to service them in Slack. But at some point in time, those things, they creak, and eventually they break. And so kind of trying to understand where you are on that spectrum is important.
I mean, great answer, very well defined and clear, I think. Jihangir asked probably a general question, and it's about all this presentation, by the way. So he asked about how to start business from 0 point and be successful in the future. It is very general, but I think you are going to cover it with the presentation.
Yeah, we'll get in farther. So from day zero, first thing, start thinking about getting out of your inbox and putting some kind of platform in place where you can organize not just your life, but organize your business better. The next thing that you need to start thinking about is how to make it easy to reach you, but within reason. So fast growing startups, they adopt omnichannel support. When I say omnichannel, I'm talking about channels, I mean communication channels. So whether that's email, chat, WhatsApp, phone, fast growing startups generally adopt these channels sooner than other startups. And the correlation between adopting those and fast growth is important because, like I was saying before, customers really expect more of the brands they do business with today. They expect more transparency. They expect more convenience in reaching you. And so you have to make it easy to reach you. It's part of the unspoken contract that customers have with you. You need to be there. Now, I say within reason, and what we see oftentimes with companies early on, so they're trying to be there for their customers whenever their customers need them. As an early stage startup, there's a defined limit to the hours that you have available in your life, especially as a founder, right? You've only got 24 hours every day, and that's it. And so sometimes companies will early on maybe try to say like, yeah, I want to provide voice support so my customers can call me anytime, or I want to provide live chat. But these things can be very, very challenging to actually man. So part of making it easy to reach you is also, prioritizing the places where you think you can successfully support someone. And so, when it comes to thinking about, what are those things that need to build early on, email or a contact form are the easiest places to get started. Email is something that, we all have. It's something that is known in the market and is, pretty easy to launch regardless of how your users are using your product. I think a contact form is essentially a version of email, but it has the beauty of bringing structure to the way that your customers are reaching out to you. This, I think, is a great tool. Put it in your website, put it in your mobile app, structure the way that folks will provide you feedback, and make it easy and obvious to find that. Other things, certainly phone chat. You can consider this. Social media, if you're a B2C company that is, that has a lot of Instagram followers, you need to start thinking about this as not just a marketing channel, but it will very likely become a customer support channel. And so what I encourage early on is taking an assessment of, who are your customers? How are they likely interacting with you already today? Based on sort of that customer profile, how are they likely to want to interact with you in the future? And start letting that inform what you put in place and the pacing of how you do it. It'll vary business to business, so there's not one thing to kind of say across all, but do that work. Think about what they are going to want and what you can support, and then start layering in those different channels to be within contact. The thing you don't want to do is make it super hard to find out how to reach you, because if you do that, if you bury your contact us link, if you make it completely impossible to see where to get help, your users will find a way. But unfortunately, in finding a way, that means they're going to take to very public channels, and they'll probably be fairly frustrated at the point in time they have to go, tweet at you or start messaging you on Facebook. And so this is also part of how you need to think about ensuring that you do need to provide an outlet so that the public sphere doesn't become the outlet where you end up having to solve customer problems. So the next target, and I was kind of talking about this a little bit, is to build a plan for your customers to reach you live. Building a plan is not the same as actually going live. And depending on, like I said, the business that you're in, sometimes the regulatory environment you're in, you will have to provide live support early on. One thing that we know about live channels, and when I talk about live channels, that's mostly live chat and phone support. These are great places to solve a lot of urgent, high value customer issues. And you can do it quickly, and when it's chat, you can do it very cheaply. From our findings, fast growing startups add chat within the first 12 months of building out their support operations, and voice support within, let's say, the first 17 months after fundraising. But in the early days, it can be hard to, like I said, have people available to talk to your customers in real time. So roll out these tools based on customer preferences. If you want to hack at it a little bit in advance, there are a couple of things that you can do depending on the market you're operating in. In the US, it's not uncommon to leave a voicemail for someone. And so you can provide phone support without having to be there answering the phones all the time. You can do that very simply by setting up a voicemail inbox. There are some challenges to that, of course, where you may not get all the information that you want from that caller when you're going to respond to them. But it's one way to maybe look a little bit more legitimate and to offer phone as an option without necessarily being there all the time. For live chat, I think there for really young companies, there's an opportunity to use it very surgically and strategically, because your urgent issues can be more or less urgent depending on kind of what cycle you're in your business. Many direct to consumer or B2C companies, you know, their curve in terms of customer outreach is relatively normal. But then you get to a big major shopping holiday like we've just had here in the US with Black Friday and Cyber Monday. In China, you know, you have Singles Day. Like these are known events that are going to drive a huge amount of inquiries. And in those times when people are calling just as much to get, you know, support after they've bought something as they are support in order to buy something, turning on live channels for those bursts of high revenue generating activity makes all the sense in the world. So, you know, really at the beginning, I would say don't turn on anything live, but build a plan that you can actually support. That again is focused on where can you bring more value to the end customer, and where can you do it in a way that's going to be easier on you for a business to manage. And here, you know, I wanted to show a little bit of how the pros do it. And Dollar Shave Club is a company that I think, you know, I draw a lot of inspiration on in terms of just like the very the way that they really emphasize the basics, and they do it so well. So if you're not familiar with Dollar Shave Club, it's a monthly box subscription for men to get all of their shaving needs. So I'm not a subscriber, as maybe you would guess, but still a big fan of what they do. And there are a few things that they've done very, very simply. So when I talk about, you know, make it easy for your customers to know how to contact you, this little help widget at the bottom of the website is the perfect place to start. It's there. It's always present on their site as you scroll up or down, because they know this is one of the reasons why a lot of their users will come to the website. Let's make it easy for folks to know where to get the help that they need. When you click on that little web widget, then, you know, this is the panel that it opens, and it's so beautiful. So they start with offering you a set of commonly asked questions and answers. They're at the point in time where they've had so much volume from customers that they know, you know, what are the top 3 issues that folks are looking for help on, and so they provide those answers right away, right at the top. But then if those, you know, basic FAQs don't answer what you need, you know, this get in touch option pops up exactly what's available right now. So, you know, for them, being able to do a live chat, being able to leave a message, that also lets your customer, you know, kind of sort their issue in terms of urgency. And so, whereas if you only offered one, they're kind of stuck with the way that things are. Here you have very clear transparency, very clear visibility. Okay, if I initiate a live chat, I'm, you know, it's probably because this thing is urgent and I need a response now. And I know I can't leave my browser until it's solved. Whereas when you leave a message, maybe it's a little less urgent. Maybe it's something that, you know, you're fine to be contacted about a little later from now. So these are just some very basic ways that you can think about really putting those right contact channels in front of your customers. All right, so target 4, I've got 2 more after this. So target 4 is to get a help center up. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and honestly, the shortest path to answers for your customers can and should be self-service. 61% of customers want to resolve as many issues on their own as possible. And so here you have the opportunity to enable that while also bringing scale to distributing knowledge within and outside of your organization. Help centers can be daunting though, right? And especially if you see kind of the biggest, most robust, beautiful ones that have every question answered, can be daunting to see that and think that you need to get to that level. But this is more like training for, I would say, a marathon than training for a sprint. It's about getting started, improving, adding a little bit day after day, and really get running. Our research showed that, of course, always just launch with your top 5 questions and try to grow to about 30 articles by month 6. The good news is that if you've moved out of your singular inbox and you start using a tool that allows you to craft frequent responses to questions that come in a lot, you already have these help center articles, right? You just need to publish them in an FAQ format, in a help center format, and stop requiring somebody to email you to get that answer that's already there and documented and being shared with them. And so, I think that as you're just launching, so maybe you haven't had any customer outreach, I think that intuitively, you can either anticipate what it is your customers will reach out about, the questions they'll have, or you can look to another peer company that's in a similar space and say, like, okay, what are the questions they're getting, and you can reasonably intuit that those will be the questions that you'll get as well. The dirty little secret is that, even if you have a big, huge, very, very robust help center, your top 5 articles will get 40% of all traffic. So like I said, just, getting those first 5 out there and getting them good will do a lot to help your customers help themselves. It will do a lot to help ensure that they don't have to contact you for answers that are always out there, that are already out there in the wild. We have a friend who's at a startup, fintech startup in New York called Bank Novo, and he always says, like, if I have a question, all I want is an answer. And as a startup, like, that's what you should facilitate for your customer. If you have a problem, then you want to talk to a human. And so using a help center to answer those questions will also leave time for you to get to the more important problems that your customers have and focus on those when they're reaching out to customer support. And like I said, it's something that you can start in just a very beautiful and simple way. This startup, Deli Co, is out of Brazil. So apologies if the Portuguese is a little hard for you to read, but it's this beautiful direct-to-consumer brand where when the pandemic started, they started selling Dutch ovens because, like, all of a sudden we all became sourdough bread makers all around the world. So they started selling Dutch ovens, and also like other high-end kitchen products, and they had a lot of interest, which was fantastic. But they were looking to take a little bit of the pressure off, especially in front of the Black Friday holiday that was coming. And so, you don't have to start big, like Dollar Shave Club. Here they did a few things. They put a few help center articles right here in their support pane and their help pane. There's no way to live chat here. They didn't have people to support that, but just putting a few very basic questions that they were already getting into this format makes it so much easier to start deflecting those questions as tickets. One of the other decisions that they made, though, because their product was so unique and the care of this cast iron product in particular was so central to kind of their brand and their marketing, they went the route of kind of having 2 help centers, one of which is very highly designed and stylized, which is all about the care of their products. And the FAQs are about those products. And so they kind of left that in the marketing side of the house, whereas help around, Do you sell to restaurants? What are the terms and conditions? Those sort of business parts of transacting with them, they left in the help center. And that's something that you can think about doing as well. Oftentimes companies kind of feel this tug between, I want these things hosted on my main website, but you're telling me to launch a help center, and there's good reason oftentimes to do both. All right, target 5, add apps and integrations that increase productivity. You have to start making your stack work together and work for you as early as possible. And you can improve productivity, streamline, automate workflows by tying together the most important systems that you're working from. So in customer support, a tool like Zendesk can be and oftentimes is the hub for all of your customer communications. But a customer problem doesn't stand alone. Sometimes a customer problem is actually a product bug, and so a really easy integration to Jira makes it so simple for you to communicate with your engineering teams and then back with you. Slack, another hugely popular integration with Zendesk, where maybe what a customer's issue is really a billing issue. It's not an easy support issue, and so the ability to chat to teams outside of customer support, super helpful. I think probably the thing on the when you think about apps and bringing things together, though, oftentimes the most critical piece is really like bringing more of your customer view and customer record into that interface. And so in a product like Zendesk, you can do that by building a custom app and pulling information in. If you're an e-commerce company and using Shopify, like that becomes very easy. But like the main rule of thumb is, you should not buy something that's going to force you to work in a silo, with open and extensible APIs. Like no good software company has an excuse to not be integrating with other products. And you should demand that of any product that you bring into your stack early on. And finally, when you think about your customer experience, you have to be relentless. So some of the targets that we have in terms of first reply time and the amount of time it should take to resolve a customer issue, that's a little bit for later in your journey. But, one, it's important to know what success is going to look like. And two, when it comes to working with customers, just know that speed and responsiveness are the two most important things when it comes to driving a positive interaction and a positive satisfaction. And so, you have to be relentless about driving down reply times and resolution times. You have to get back to your customers as efficiently, as quickly as possible. Like, this is the spot where all of the investments in kind of a core support system and in activating the right channels for them to reach you, like this, investing in a help center that's going to answer questions that don't require tickets. Like, this is where it's all going to come together and really be visible to your customers that you are investing in them as you invest in the company. And so, rule of thumb, try to get a first reply done, to a customer within the day that they reach out to you. Ideally, when you're at it a while, like maybe you can get that down to hours early on. It's, try to keep it within one day. And then for solving an issue, don't add much more than another business day on top of it. But, measuring these things, holding yourself accountable, holding your team accountable is really critical when you're getting started. And as you invest in those other places, those other, 5 targets that I talked about, you'll start seeing the payoff here in time, in overall satisfaction, and ultimately in building those promoters of your brand. And that's it. These are the 6 key targets for building your day one plan. It's not rocket science, but it is something that requires you to be a little bit thoughtful, to understand where you are, to understand where your customers are, begin making that plan for investing and getting out in front of building a great customer experience. And if you still aren't convinced, have confidence, your investment will pay off. The LTV to churn, rules, it's basic math, and reducing churn, 5% can be pretty ambitious, but even reducing churn a little bit over time will pay huge dividends in revenue. And so as I wrap up, like I mentioned, a few resources for you. Zendesk is committed to startups, because we were one ourselves, but really because, we believe that you guys are creating the future of business, and how we're going to live and how we're going to work. And so we want to see startups grow and succeed. We created the Zendesk for Startups program to make it easy for you to get to know and experience value from our products, to get expert help, to ensure you're onboarding and building for scale from day one, and to build community with other founders and CX leaders who want to know and serve their customers better. And so with Startup Istanbul, we're so pleased to be partners. I encourage all of you to apply to join us. I know a few of you have already, which is fantastic. In closing, we're here to help in whatever way we can. And if you need more details, feel free to contact me afterwards, or Barak, I think, can help you as well. And that's it for the presentation, and would love to get into more of your questions.
I have my questions. I have my notes.
All right.
Let me trigger the other questions as well. I mean, you mentioned about the answer timeline, which means how long do we have to answer the customer questions? I have also read an article about the timing. 1 minute and 3 hours has the same kinds of outputs of from the customer satisfaction. I mean, so is it true that you have already shared that 8 hours or do not pass 1 day? Should we focus on to answer as soon as possible, or should we answer about the sustainability of answering the customers?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I'll break it down into a few parts. So when we're talking about hours and days, like that can only count for what we would call non-live channels. So email, contact form, it's expected you can take a little bit longer there. If somebody's waiting on a live chat or is calling you on the phone, then you start measuring in minutes and seconds. So that's kind of the highest level there. When we think about these two key, components of time that matters. One is, that first reply, and the other is how long does it take to fully complete the solution. We don't have a good sensitivity analysis of which matters more, but take it to know that both do matter. A fast first reply without really making any progress towards answering a question or fixing a problem, maybe is just going to, it's not gonna solve much for the customer. And so, in the same regard, I think that if you make somebody wait to hear from you at all for a long time, maybe the first time they hear from you, you solved it right away. But if you wait forever, most likely they're just going to file another ticket with you, and they're going to get impatient. And so this is one of those things that, while our research has indicators and broad brushstrokes, really it comes down to your business. When you think about, so our research showed that 3 hours for first reply time, this is after being at it for 2 years, right? And really working at it. So, I would say if you're just getting started, if somebody reaches out to contact form, emails you, that first reply needs to be within the same business day, whatever that means for them. And you shouldn't take more than a business day, ideally, to resolve the issue. And so you use those as the rules of thumb as you work through it. If you're a if you're a B2B company selling to enterprises, like you're going to have more complex issues. And so like it could be very unrealistic to think you would resolve a customer problem within, within 24, 48 hours, or, definitely within 8 hours. So you have to kind of balance that with the reality of the business you're operating. What I will say is that at some point in time, you'll start chasing diminishing returns. And so, to get from an 8-hour first reply time to a 4-hour first reply to, like, let's say a 1-hour first reply, like that's going to be really expensive for you as a business. You're going to have somebody kind of on the ticket queue all the time to drive that down. And, honestly, it may not make that much of a difference in your ultimate outcome with the customer. So one of the important things and one of the benefits when you put a support platform in place is you can start seeing the metrics on the other side of this. If you can see if you're making progress on shortening those wait times, you can also see, is that having an impact in customer satisfaction or not? And if you're chasing something that's ultimately not, it's not impacting a better customer experience or satisfaction, like, you can pull your foot off the gas pedal at some point in time. And I think it's important to know when you will start hitting that ceiling.
And we have questions from our audience, but what do you think about the Prime support? I mean, which means priority support, because some of the trendy software as a service providers or other services also, they sell the support. I mean, if you want a priority support, you buy the service and they probably serve you quicker. What do you think about this trend?
Yeah. So if you're selling into enterprises, I think it's a great part of your offering to add, like, straight away. Like, don't hesitate. Put it on the service order and sell it. You're going to have to put a service level agreement in place because those enterprises will demand to know that you're actually meeting your commitment to them. But big companies buy it. They expect to be able to buy it. We see this in our own business. On the other hand, SMBs do not want to buy priority support. Like, generally, they're very cost conscious, and the idea, their expectation is that they're going to be supported when they're buying your product. And so the idea of buying support services on top of that, usually we've not found that to be a very palatable sell to them. You can figure out ways to do it on demand, right? Like, if you need to, if somebody needs help onboarding or, configuring something, like maybe there's an easy way that you can, let them book an hour with an expert on your support team to do it. Like, that's a great offering. But what we've seen, at least, is that there's not yet a huge propensity to want to pay for support. And I think that, one, expect, like, you're going to have to provide it. And the expectation is that, that'll be a cost of doing business to some degree. And so that's where, you can try to monetize it directly. Much more likely, you're going to have to monetize it indirectly through reducing your churn and contraction, maybe through that cross-sell, upsell that I talked about before. So we're not there yet, but as a fellow SaaS company, man, we would love to sell a support package to all of our customers too.
And what do you think? I mean, you mentioned also in the beginning of the presentation about the social media and customer service, because in the social media, it is a huge number of sometimes questions, sometimes of remarks, sometimes of some other kinds of things. Should the business answer all of these? I mean, they are looking for new customers. I can understand, but I mean, for example, there are many social channels nowadays, from Instagram to YouTube, from Twitter to Facebook. I mean, you cannot directly cover all these social medias because there are popping on new ones. TikTok is the new one. So, I mean, there is no end to that. So how do you define the customer service and social media interaction?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is really where it's important to think about, not customer service in isolation. Like really it's a conversation, and a thought process that definitely has to take marketing into account for it as well. And this is where really more than anywhere else, like these two parts of the organization are they're attached at the hip, as we would say. So as your marketing team, they probably don't want to be on all the social media channels either. You have to trim and only be in those places you can support from a marketing perspective. And the same is true from a customer support perspective. So, know that most likely, you would let service follow the lead of marketing in terms of which channels you're going to be active in. Less is probably more in that regard. And then when you start thinking about prioritizing channels, one of the things that I encourage folks to think about is like, what are those that are most connected to maybe where actual buying will happen. And that's something that we've seen, with Instagram and Facebook. They've gotten much closer to the actual commerce side of things, whereas Twitter is still, fairly far from that. And so you can prioritize your social channels, one by saying, where are the places that we believe are most likely buyers are, and getting closer to that. This is another place where I think having some sort of a support tool that organizes these things can be really critical. And there are really sophisticated tools that you can use, like a Sprout Social, a product like Zendesk. You can natively bring in some of those channels to start creating tickets. But yeah, you've got to one, kind of watch out for the noise, because there will be a lot happening in those channels. And so somebody monitoring, and usually it would be marketing that's monitoring for, things that they need to kick to customer support and kind of push that down a DM pathway. Some companies, even Zendesk, right? We have we have kind of our core, let's say, Twitter handle, but then we have one that's maintained by our support operations directly. And so oftentimes if we see something that comes in the main Zendesk Twitter channel, we'll redirect that and help try to drive them to the support operations managed one. And you can train your customers, especially in B2B. You can train your customers over time to know, like, if there are service availability issues, if you need to know status of certain products, like, don't go here, like go to the support managed channel. And that's something that they generally, they will follow your lead on.
Great. We have last two questions.
Okay. Yeah.
What is the future of customer communication in next 5 years? Gurmesh asked about bots and WhatsApp, and also the calls. And Sebastian asked, what is the cheapest way to use these apps and increase our productivity?
All right. So we'll take the first one. Yeah, he kind of knows the answer to this question. Like, the future is increasingly messaging forward. So while email is kind of the standard we've been working on for the last 10, 15 years, the future is in messaging. And I think that platforms like WhatsApp have made it not only more convenient to do these things, but it's also made it much cheaper for folks to get support. So, whether you're in a B2B or you're building a B2C company, know that messaging is going to be critical in both of those areas. One of the great things is like, within that is opportunity, because there's so much more you can do in sort of building and crafting an experience like in a messaging interface than what has historically been possible in email. So lots of goodness there. I think that, messaging also enables even better usage of bots, and what we've seen so far is huge improvements made in being able to really get true help from bots, and that's only going to accelerate over time. when you think about productivity and how you can kind of get ahead of these things, I mentioned before building a help center, kind of starting to build that knowledge base within your company. You can build it for internal purposes. You're building it for external purposes. And the more structure you put around that, like the more you will scale with those things very simply. But you take a great help center, you layer a bot on top of it in your messaging channel, and all of a sudden, you're out to the races. You've got your content and your automation working together to really help drive responses even faster. So like that's very future oriented, and I think it is a place where companies can find a lot of help. But again, like the best thing to kind of manage productivity, like the first step is get out of an email inbox, get into a tool, start building those those frequent responses as macros, and just start firing and going.
Kristen, thank you very much. I mean, it was very useful and valuable session today. So I will be very happy to see you back in Istanbul, as I mentioned in the beginning of after this coronavirus. And thank you for your whole team to organize this. And we are very proud to be one of your partners for the startups at Zendesk. And we will definitely share the all package of startups for sure. And please stay safe and healthy.
Thank you. You too. We couldn't be happier working with Startup Istanbul and your company. So feel free to call on us for anything.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Good. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks. You too. Cheers.